Hello.
Hello. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for being.
Of course, of course.
Let me see. Do you need to be made a host and all this stuff? Is it already done? I don't know. Let's see.
I'm not sure.
I'm going to make you. Yes, now you're a co-host. So
Yeah, now I can share my screen.
Oh, I'm supposed to have some questions. I'm going to excuse myself. I'll be right back. I'm going to get this.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi,
I'm
Rosa.
Rosa Rodriguez,
Hello.
President of REFORMA SJSU.
Yay!
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I heard so much about you. It's finally good to see a face to your name.
Thank you. I hope all wonderful things. I'm a bit
Always.
of a como se jacalera, so I never know. Oh man.
Welcome, Arthur. Is it Sion or Sean?
Sean, yeah.
Sean.
Thank you.
Pretty
Hi.
name. We should be getting started in a few minutes. If you would like to let us know where you're joining us from, you can enter that in the chat. That would be awesome. How's North Haven, Connecticut, Arthur?
It's good. It's
Yeah.
good. The bottom level of my library has been doing COVID vaccinations in partnership with a community health center for it's probably been about a month now. And that's actually where I got my first shot, and I get my second Moderna shot next this coming Wednesday. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Rosario is joining us from Los Angeles. Welcome, Rosario.
Hello.
Well, it's good to have someone from a different state.
Where are you from? Where
I'm
you?
from Fallbrook, California.
Oh, different. Okay.
So a little bit south from LA, San Diego area.
Oh, I see. I'm having my dinner, so I'm gonna take a bite.
What are you having for dinner? You're on mute. No.
Sorry, yeah. It's leftover. I made a stir fry. So
Wow.
yeah.
Nice.
I always like to hear what people are having for dinner and breakfast. I think that was one of our entering like our what do you call it? Like the introduction questions that we have, icebreaker. Like, what did you have for breakfast? Man, people have some elaborate stuff. I'm like, I'm barely waking up.
I noticed there's another issue. Sometimes people come in and they have my name. So if you see that your name doesn't appear there and it says Sophia LaMonica, I don't know. I think you can rename yourself, or I can rename you if you volunteer your name. We don't know who you are. This happened last time. It was a strange thing. There were a bunch of Sophias.
I remember that.
That's the name.
Oh, so I'm Philly Grace.
Okay, I can rename you. I think right here. Let's see if this works. Really? I don't know why that happens. Let's see.
There.
Okay, and if there's anybody who shows up, we'll name them right away.
Everybody wants to be Sophia.
Right?
The last time everybody was Rosa. I think we have a few Rosas here with us tonight.
Oh, we did.
Several RSVPs from Rosa.
Can I share something with my name? You reminded me when I was growing up, young child. I never liked my name because it was different from just the regular names in school. So I never liked my name. And now I love it. But anyways, that was my little story.
That's nice. I love your name. I love it.
Yeah, it's long, but yeah, it just grew to love it. So.
That's nice. It's a good story. Thank you.
I think that's pretty common with a lot of Latinas.
Yeah.
My full name is Maria del Pilar. So in the US, it's a mouthful.
Oh.
I used to hate my name as a kid because everyone would say Petrie, like the dinosaur from Land Before Time. And then later on, I just kind of started using it and actually liking it. But it's actually Petri, but people say Petri or Petrie. I usually let the kids get away with Petrie because they like have a lot of fun with it.
I've never heard of Petri, just Petra. I've heard of Petra, but not Petri. That's cute.
Yeah, my grandma's name was Petra, so my dad just replaced the A with a Y to make it more modern.
I like hearing the stories of how our names came to be and how they like tweaked it, right? There's a whole like storytelling behind that.
We do have quite a few RSVPs, so maybe we want to give another minute or two to let some more people show up because it's close to 40 that RSVP'd. So
Wow.
we'll see. And maybe they're hoping also for the recording afterwards.
It's good. It's because we have a precedent here. Huh? Petri, we were talking about this.
Your honor.
Oh gosh. As I like sit here all nervous, I'm a very nervous person. So like, I'm just like, ugh.
I can't even remember the last time I did like any type of public speaking since COVID. It's just, everything's been so, I haven't done anything like this in a very long time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And also, I feel like virtual to me is like, I get more nervous virtual than in person, which is wild. Cause I'm like, oh, but I don't know. I think the recording part always gets me. I'm like, this is going to live forever, ever.
Not the pro-Trump insurrectionists who went on to attack Congress.
We should remind people that the meeting is being recorded. So we can do that.
Don't do anything foolish. Don't do.
And also, we should also mute our microphones when we're not speaking so that we don't have interference. I should need to remind myself of that quite often, so I'm going to mute mine.
I have a habit of like breathing in randomly, and I've done it, and I'm like, people are like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's me breathing. It's terrible.
If you came in and your name is showing as Sofia La Monica, you can change your name by clicking. Sofia is a host, is a co-host or host? A host. But if you go to your name and click more, you're able to change it. But if you're having trouble, Sofia can assist you with that. You just need to let her know your name.
I see one me, at least another one. I don't know how many there are, but yes, there's one Sophia. So if you don't see your name across the top, let us know.
I think it's in the chat, Sophia, Arelis.
Okay, I will rename her right now. Oh yes, there she is.
Yes, Arelis is my coworker. Well, I don't work directly with her, but she's a coworker in the New Haven Free Public Library system. I shared this with some of my coworkers who work in libraries that are in predominantly or serve sizable Latino communities, because it was like, this is like a really cool opportunity. So
That's exciting. It gets me a little more nervous, Arthur, but it's okay. It's okay. I don't take myself too seriously, so I hope that's the fun part of it.
So I'm interested to know who is actually drinking cafecito right now.
I'm having tea, but it's in a coffee mug, so try.
Oh,
Counts. I'm having water. I can't drink coffee after 12. I will never sleep.
well, I'm a coffee addict. So.
Oh man, I love coffee, but I will be angry at myself later. But I really like black coffee by itself. I love the taste of it. But so it makes me sad. Makes me really sad.
I'm drinking water. I have to stay hydrated because I'm a pregnant lady.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is it the first?
Yes, it is. And I'm 6 months right now.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Do you have any names for it?
Yeah, so it's a girl.
Nice.
Her name's gonna be Leela, but it's spelled Leela. It had to be unique because my name is unique.
Nice.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out when she will be born. So I'm sitting here being counting. You have 2 months, right? 2 months left? You're 6 months?
3, so
3.
July 22nd.
Oh. A summer baby.
Mm-hmm.
I think individuals with summer birthdays have a really fun birthday. I was born in winter, so I feel like you got the hot sun. I'm ready whenever you all would like me to start. So
Okay. Should we start, Rosa, or do you think we should wait a couple minutes?
No, I think we should start.
Okay.
all right.
Okay. I'll
and
go
I-
ahead. Sorry.
And no. I share my screen, right?
Yeah, you can share.
Okay. All right.
Okay, hello everyone. So my name is Petri and I'm co-hosting this event along with Alejandra. I'm the alumni liaison, and Alejandra, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Alejandra. I am the marketing and social media liaison. Petri and I are both members of REFORMA LA Chapter. And we're very happy to have you all. Just a quick reminder, like we mentioned before, this meeting is being recorded. Like that, anybody who missed it, our lovely presentation is able to watch it again on YouTube. We also have our other Cafecito events there. So let's get this started. So I'm gonna introduce Patty really quick. She's gonna introduce herself, but I have a whole speech. So, so Patty, she is a multilingual collections librarian where she's part of a team responsible for selecting Spanish materials for all ages. She translates materials and she develops content such as blog posts and social media posts for Spanish and bilingual Spanish communities. She is a recipient of the Spectrum Scholarship Program and is currently, like we mentioned before, the president of the REFORMA Los Angeles Chapter. I'd like to share a little bit more. Actually, Patty is a big influence to me. She's a big mentor. I've had the privilege to see her in action. So she actually worked at the branch where I am now. So I've heard a lot of stories. And then when I attended my first ever ALA conference, I saw her there actually. She was she's part of a lot of things, so I don't know what she was doing that time, but she's a great person to know. And this is why we wanted to invite her. And so we're ready for her presentation, and I'm excited for you guys to hear about what she's done and what she's doing now.
Thank you, Alejandra. Now I'm just going to start crying. Thank you, everyone. It's a huge honor to be here and spend my evening with you all. I was really excited when Petri and Alejandra asked me to be a part of it. And I was like, yeah, any way to support students and just people in the field. It's actually really interesting because recently I realized I'm no longer an early career librarian. I feel like I've gained lots of years in my portfolio. So it was like a huge realization. Also, I'm about to turn 30, so that's been fun. Although some people are like, you're so young, I'm still like, oh. But anyway, so your words mean a lot. And so I'm really excited to be here. Everyone can see the PowerPoint, right? They're just pictures. I really like sharing stories through pictures because it's a good reminder of, growing up and just, where life takes you. So my full name is Patty Valdovinos, but most people call me Patricia, and I don't like it in English, so I go by Patty in English. But if you want to call me Patricia, feel free. I am a librarian in Multilingual Collections, as Alejandra mentioned, for the Los Angeles Public Library. All right, so this is me. This is baby Patty. I think that was just straight out of high school. I attended UCLA to receive my bachelor's in Chicana and Chicano studies with minors in education and American Indian studies. So that really laid the foundation of a lot of my thought process and theory work on how I approach community work and just work, especially the political part of it. And I'll explain more of how I encompass political work and what I do. But yeah, so that's me. And I haven't seen that picture in a bit. So it was really fun to like get it out of the Patty folder. And so the second year in my undergrad, I started working at the UCLA's Chicano Studies Research Center. And so this is really the place that set, that allowed me to know that I wanted to be a librarian. So the person on the far, my left, Lizette Guerra, she was the librarian and archivist at the Chicano Studies Research Library. And so I worked there because I needed employment, and I was always at the library. And that was the first time I actually ever saw a librarian of color. And so she was very welcoming, and I worked there till I graduated. But I did a few research programs, and I knew I needed to get a degree after my bachelor's because I was really scared of being unemployed. I have my sister graduated during the 2008 financial crisis. So I saw her struggle a lot, and it was just a fear of mine. So I knew I needed another degree, and I wasn't sure in what. And so Lizette would always tell me that she saw me being a librarian, and I always told her, no, I don't want to be a librarian. So for about 2 years, because I was under the assumption that libraries only meant books, but it was through my participation in my work at the CSRC that I was able to see the community work that libraries really entail, and how this place actually didn't only connect students, but connected the community, right? It collected voices and really allowed for a space for people to just know. So this was in 2014. This is actually Ozo Motley. So they came and did a concert for the students. Yeah, it was a great, it was here. It was amazing. But so that led me to then attend UCLA and graduate in 2016. As you can see the changes, right? I always giggle at it. And so I did the librarianship field, and I really like this picture because all four of us started together, and we have a connection to the CSRC. Some of you may know these individuals. We all graduated together, and they were really my support network. And I will touch a little bit more about the importance of community within school and also outside, right? I had a lot of traumatic experiences, sometimes I would call it, or just hardships going through library school. And I reached out to them, and they were there for me a lot of the times, especially the imposter syndrome and just questioning what I wanted to do, if this is where I feel. But yeah, so I graduated in 2016, and that was fun. And so I Then right after graduation, I got an email about the Los Angeles Public Library recruiting their summer author program coordinator. And that was the first year that they were doing such program. Now it's known as your author series. So I applied for it, and it was a grant funded position. And that was the first time I was able to actually create a huge scale programming series with authors. And so I developed a niche for it, and I actually realized that I have kind of a skill to contact authors and create that programming. So my passion for program really was grown through that position. And then I was then asked to apply for their STEAM coordinator position. And so right after the summer author program position ended, I went to STEAM coordinator. But again, because it was only grant funded and I needed an actual like permanent job, I then applied to Yolo County Library. So I moved up Northern California, not knowing anyone. I didn't have any family, no friends. So that was a fun experience. And actually, I had the privilege to have access to move. And that was the job that allowed me to work with migrant families and really understand how communities mean different for different like parts of the country and parts of the state, right? And also what access means for different communities and how they work, right? And so it was really eye-opening because I went from Los Angeles, which is a huge city, to Yolo County, which is very rural. I worked at the Davis Branch Library, which was a college town. And so that was also very eye-opening. But yeah, that was me. At the Migrant Center, we had like I think it was a summer reading club, and it was the end. And so the kids were really fun. And I really learned a lot because we worked predominantly with children, and the children were only here for 9 months and then moved wherever their respected homes were. And to see them be so mobile at such a young age and just take life as it came was such a beautiful thing to see as a young adult, right? Who was also new to the area. And so, yeah. And then my other position, I moved back to Los Angeles in 2000, I think that's 2018, the little things on my way. I think, oh no, it says in 2018, I believe, because I needed to be closer to home. My family meant a lot to me, and people were growing up and not remembering who I was. I mean, little ones. And so I moved back to LA and became under youth services. I became their bilingual outreach librarian, young adult bilingual outreach librarian. And so that's me doing outreach with a goat. Goats are my favorite animal. I really like farm animals. And so, and it's funny because poor little goat is probably like, why are you in this picture? And so I, in my position currently, so I transferred from being in youth services, a young adult bilingual outreach librarian, to becoming an adult librarian in multilingual collections. And in this department, as Alejandra mentioned, I create content in Spanish and English and bilingual to connect our community to the resources we have. I also help purchase material for all ages. I focus more on children and teens, and my boss does more of the adult, but sometimes we switch because sometimes she really wants to know what's new in children, and sometimes I really want to know what's really new in adults. And in my position, I also find it very cool because it's very flexible in the sense that I'm part of other committees. I'm in the LA Libros Festival committee, which as I spoke about before, I have a niche for author programming, so I'm responsible for that committee. And I'm also part of the LA Made committee, which is another department's in charge of, but I also bring different individuals and performers and all that good jazz to the LA Public Library. And so I also help run the social media platforms, as you can say. And one of the biggest things that I'm actually very proud of is the blog content that I'm able to create in my job. I've heard a lot of positive feedback about how individuals are finally able to see themselves reflect, especially the millennial individuals who might not have children and who are younger, who didn't realize that the library was also for them. And so that became a passion of mine, is connecting with individuals who might not see themselves going to the library because there isn't a need for them, right? Because they don't have children, they're not adults, elders who might need help with certain things, and they're not necessarily students. So I write blog posts that connect with them. And so I use catchy titles like Esta Navidad Quiero WAP for Cardi B's WAP song. And so that blog post featured, I think it was like their alcoholic beverages, right? And so I want to focus on this slide because I use a lot of my frameworks of how I am a librarian is to be myself in the work I do, right? So I think we grow up learning that you have to be two, right? You have to be like the professional person and then the personal person, like personal, whoever you are outside. So my form of resistance in this field is to just show who I am to everyone, right? Because it's exhausting. I think as a woman of color, we try to navigate different things. And I'm like, well, you're going to get what you're going to get. You're going to get me like silly self, and you're going to respect me for the work I do. And so I do that, and I show that funny part through blog posts. And so, I've written stuff like Yo Perreo Sola was a huge one during quarantine because Bad Bunny's song came out, and that really focused on how I live alone and I'm dealing with this pandemic by myself. Here are the resources that are going to help you, like they helped me navigate this. So that's my style. I also, during grad school, and one of my other frameworks that I realized is that neutrality is really a myth. And that really stuck with me through grad school and also in my job now, right? Because I am who I am, and my cultural experiences are shaping everything I do. And it's a myth in the sense that like how I show you and my passions and like equity and all that is really framing how I'm shaping the work I do. And that can be seen in the collection development that I help with, right? When I look at books or when I see and review them, I'm really reviewing if stereotypes are being shown. Are we focusing on showing light-skinned Latinos? Are darker-skinned Latinos also being reflected on the books we're buying? Certain topics, right? Like what is being shown to our individuals? And so I knew that neutrality was a myth because that's the focus I'm showing, right? I'm focusing on in buying books and purchasing books. Also, another participation I've done is the 2019 Youth Media Awards. So I was part of the Pura Verde selection committee, which was also very eye-opening in the sense that I learned how books are being chosen to be awarded and how like the dialogue behind it and how we are choosing these. And so that really helped me frame framed how I am also purchasing books now and how evaluating them. And as currently, as Alejandra also mentioned, I am Reforma LA's president. This was the 2019 Reforma LA mentorship program kickoff. We don't have any in-person pictures for my presidency of this year because I started and I'm like during COVID and it's continued. But this was actually, I think, the last event we had before COVID hit. And so this was our last year's mentorship program, and we just started our new one this month. And so Reforma meant a lot to me in the sense that I found community also through in conferences. So I connected with Reforma at conferences, and then I was able to connect with them at home. And so they are doing a lot of community work, but also supporting you emotionally and professionally, which is something that I think a lot of us need, because I think we reach out to organizations just to support us professionally. But the mentorship that I've learned from Reforma and the support I've received emotionally has been huge. So this is who we are. We're the Association to Promote Library and Information Services to Latinos and Spanish speaking. And we are committed, I think there's a misspelling in here, my bad, is committed to the improvement of the full spectrum of library and information services for the 40 million Spanish speaking Latinos. And so we also provide scholarships, we also provide support for our members, and you don't have to be Latinx, you don't have to speak Spanish to be part of Reforma, because we offer that support for you all. And so these are our connections, how you can connect with us. And I also advise for you all to follow LAPL in Espanol. And so that was quick. I really like pictures. I hope I was able to tell you my story through pictures. And so now questions. I know that's the part that I think a lot of people are wanting to hear.
Yeah, thank you so much, Patty. I really enjoyed your presentation. Like even before when you just sent it to us, I was really excited to see you like put words to it.
Yeah.
It is very like visually pretty.
Thanks.
So go ahead and open up the Q&A part. We did have one question submitted previously by Arelis Fernandez. I know they're here, so if they're welcome to ask themselves, or I can totally do it. That's fine too. And at least if you would like me to just ask the question, that's fine.
And I am an open book. I didn't want to like spend so much time on the presentation because I think people are curious about different parts. But seriously, ask me anything. I'm professionally or even personally at this point.
Okay, so her question, she had 2 questions, and I'm gonna do them in Spanish. Don't judge my Spanish. And Sophia will put it in the chat in English translation in case anyone needs it. ¿Qué recursos, personal, presupuesto, etcétera, son indispensables a asignar para desarrollar programas, colecciones, servicios que genuinamente sirvan a la comunidad hispana? En otras palabras, ¿qué es lo mínimo necesario para desarrollar programas, colecciones, servicios robustos para la comunidad hispana e inmigrante en una ciudad como New Haven, ciudad santuario?
Okay. Do you want me to answer it in Spanish te contesto en español o te lo contesto en inglés?
Yo creo que estamos mejor en español.
En español, ok. A ver, tengo la pregunta aquí. Servicios. Hold on.
Oh, she said any language, cualquier idioma.
Okay. Lo voy a hacer en Spanglish en este momento. You know, a ver. Hold on. I'm a visual person, so I have to visualize. I have to like read the question. What resources? So I think it's what it comes down to support, right? From your library system. And by support, I think budget and staff also tag along. So and so when you're that support is from administration, right? Because they're the ones in charge of who's gonna give you the budget, how much are you able to allocate to certain communities. And LAPL and in my department, that has increased significantly throughout the years. So, but I also understand that budget and money isn't something that is always as accessible as it is to LAPL, right? Because we are a bigger system. We generate a lot more taxes that we're able to collect, right? And so, but it really comes down to the support of administration and how much they're willing to allow you to do certain things to serve the community. If I'm answering her question correctly. In other words, what is, it is the person who asked it here?
Yeah, that's her on the chat, Adelis.
Okay, yes. So, and let me keep developing. In other words, what is it? Also, I think when you are creating these resources, because we are not a monolithic group, to also be aware of that. Just because, you know, it is a sanctuary city, do not stereotype the individuals that you think might come with that, right? And so that's really important in that, and when you're developing resources and programs for that, you know, don't assume that they all need this certain thing, right? I think we tend to do that, especially with our immigrant communities, is that we focus so much on this trauma-based resource when sometimes individuals from immigrant communities just want to read a book that isn't about immigration or don't necessarily need immigrant resources, right? They are turning to us to offer them resources for fun. And so when you're approaching individuals, remember that you are connecting them to all parts of it. So did I answer your question for that one?
I think that should be good. Yeah,
Okay.
she said yeah.
Okay.
And the second one would be, además del ingenio que tragedias recomiende para atender el problema de la difícil contratación de profesionales bilingües o hispanohablantes en las bibliotecas, así como las limitaciones para adquirir y catalogar adecuadamente los recursos en otros idiomas, español.
Okay. So, a ver, es un problema que tenemos en muchos de los sistemas de la biblioteca aquí en los Estados Unidos, porque no ponemos, en veces usamos personas, so hold on, I'm thinking in 2 languages and it's like, well, I have to take a moment. So this is a really, I'm trying to formulate thing. When it comes to support again, but I think we've, and I've struggled with this personally too, where I think we're in a transition phase between how we've relied on individuals who aren't getting paid what they deserve to use their Spanish, right? So it's a skill. And I think administration has gotten away for years to not paying our communities who speak Spanish what they deserve to use it, right? And so I think that's something that we need to make administration aware of, so that we place value on this, right? It's a skill and our communities deserve it. Our employees deserve it. And so it is really understanding that in hiring more bilingual staff, you're investing in staff, and you're also investing in your system, in your collection and an experience, right? And that's something that you need to, like, you have to, I don't want to be like, you need to explain to admin, right? Because sometimes hierarchy is like off the chain and I'm never going to be able to talk to administration, right? But it's also in, like pressing, right? Keep telling them, like, you're investing, you place the responsibility on them. Like, you need to invest in the community by investing in Spanish speaking staff, which will then provide you with a cultural experience that is able to provide adequate collections, adequate resources that connect back to the community. So yes, and so that was the first part of her question, right? Yes, and then I'm reading, as well as limitation of hiring adequate count. Sorry, I'm rereading this question.
It's okay. The second part is limitations to cataloging, acquiring it adequately, cataloging resources in other languages. How do you face that?
So I don't really do a lot of cataloging, but I know that there is, I do a lot of purchasing. So I'm not able to provide like what resources we have for cataloging. But when it comes to purchasing and acquiring, we have vendors who will help you, like if you don't have that Spanish skill, right? Or you need help in acquiring certain things, there are publishers and vendors who will help you acquire certain materials. And so, yes, in that sense. Does that answer her question?
I'm waiting to see if she responds on there.
Okay, yeah. I know I was gonna try to answer it in Spanish, but like since I'm talking in English, like my brain is, I have to, yes, I'm a mess sometimes.
It's hard switching back and forth. It's hard. Recommended
vendors. We work with a few at LAPL, but you know who, I'll give you some on the top of my head that I've personally enjoyed working with. But again, it depends, right? But like Torum has a huge Spanish section. They're actually one of the huge vendors we work with when we go to Guadalajara, Phil. And so they're able to be like, I need books in a certain topic in Spanish. Can you give me a list? And also like Tomo is a huge one. They're coming off the top of my head now. Tomo, Torum, those are the two, and we have more. So if you email me, I'm able to provide you with a list of.
Rebecca also asked, what are the 3 must-haves to begin a Spanish lingo collection at a K-12 school library and what to avoid? And she also said that she appreciates you saying your work is not neutral. How is your work political?
Okay, so 3 must-haves to begin Spanish lingo collection. I think, is this for predominantly like Spanish speaking community or just in general? Because the reason I ask that is because do you want So one of our top, like the books that go out most at LEPL are bilingual books, actually, like the English and Spanish, right? There can be multiple reasons for that, right? We have dual immersion programs. Some people like the contrast of reading in English and Spanish. We grow up in families that have English and Spanish being spoken at home, right? So I would actually recommend starting with bilingual books that have that English and Spanish first, and then also what I've learned in working in my department is that books from Spain and Mexico sometimes don't go out as much as they do here, don't go out as much here in the States, right? I think what our Latinx and Spanish speaking communities generate too isn't the same as in Spain or in Mexico, right? Or other Latin American countries. And so I've learned that they there's sometimes very darkness in some of the books, right? And so those don't really get checked out a lot, right? And so I recommend starting with the bright children's book in that sense, and then also the bilingual ones. And what to avoid. I think stereotypes is something that's big that I think can get away from you. And also publishers are just publishing things that they're going to sell. So really having an eye for what is like not perpetuating stereotypes, not only for the Latinx community, but also other communities, right? And also gathering books from other cultures in Spanish is a huge one. I think sometimes we tend to just focus on the Latinx experience, but it's important for us to also provide Spanish books on other experiences of other communities. And so that's also a must thing. But yeah, keeping out, also one of the things that I always watch out for is how many, because this is a big thing, right? Growing up as a darker skinned child and being told that I couldn't be in the sun because I was getting darker, right? So like that internalized racism is real and it's still very prevalent for children. So if you're choosing mostly light-skinned children's books, that is a problem, right? And you need to make sure that that is not only what's in your collection. So avoid that and really like diversify that. Just because it's in Spanish, just because it's Latinx, doesn't mean that it's doing the best job in diversifying our group, our community. Yes. Does someone want to say something?
There was how's your work political?
Okay. So my work is political in many ways. So let's see. I had a whole like note thing, but the way I see it is that I really like to stir the pot in the sense that I am going to show you what is hip and cool that it would make most people uncomfortable, right? And so in the sense, like that WAP post, right? We had to talk about and see what backlash would happen, like who's going to say something, who's going to complain. And so I become political in a very strategic way and sneaky way, in the sense that I will then include books by this catchy title, right? And I think a lot of it is like sayings, right? We grew up with sayings like "hay comida en la casa," right? So you attract individuals and then you provide the resources that you are trying to uplift in the community. And so in that sense, I don't know if she's talking like, that is how I identify political in my work in a subtle way. But I also am political in the sense, I think I spoke about it, right? Like making sure that I'm realizing how many light-skinned, that there's an equal balance, that also including Spanish books about, Lunar New Year, about Black Lives Matter. And so that is how I am bringing politicalness in the work I do. I don't know if that answers your question. Did that answer your question?
Totally. It's perfect and amazing. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. But yes, I think sometimes we fear bringing our personal lived experiences into the work I do, and that in itself is a political act, because these are spaces that I think we're not supposed to be in, and our experiences are definitely not supposed to be in. And so if you're able to mix both, I think a lot more people are going to see themselves reflected in the library and also see themselves in you. And then you become a resource, right? And more people will come to you and you connect them to the resources. So viewing yourself as a resource is what's really important. And that's what also libraries and administration need to invest in. Yes, I think I just went on a tangent.
No, that's perfect. Another question from Aviseli. Do you know of any opportunities for current LMIS students to get involved? Open to any suggestions.
Do you mean involved like Reforma involved or just what involved?
I would assume that Reforma, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we are always looking for volunteers. You can attend any of our meetings. I always advise, and I've been advising a lot of people to fill out our committee, which if you email me, I can send you the link, our committee volunteer form, because we have amazing committee chairs. And I know that as I've definitely felt overwhelmed sometimes by being asked to do certain things. And I'm like, oh, I don't have experience. I don't know how to do this. So we've been working really hard not to do that to students who or individuals joining Reforma. So we have amazing committee chairs who will be able to ease you and also explain. And also, I think it's a great way to gain experience from individuals already doing it. A lot of our members have been in the field for a long time and are able to provide that support, right? And I think there's, like, we have an archive committee, we have like a book buzz committee, which focuses on working with vendors and creating book presentations so that folks can know what's new, right? And so if you join these committees, you're able to understand how that works. Does that answer the question? Okay. Yes.
We'll see if anyone else has more questions.
Let's see. I know I'm looking at the chat.
Yeah, sometimes this is hard to navigate.
What's it like working for LAPL? I went from because I went from LAPL in a grant funded position to a smaller system. So LAPL has 73 locations, and I began my career in a system that had about 7 locations, right? I think that it's give and take, right? It's, with bigger systems, you're able to do more in the sense that there is more funding available for you sometimes, but you also have to learn how to work as a team and also follow a chain of command in the sense, right? Where it's different in some systems. When I was in a smaller branch, our chain of command worked different. Like I was able to go to my direct supervisor or even our library director and tell them like this and this and this, or them this and this and this. Whereas LAPL, you have to talk to other individuals and gain support and allyship so that you are able to do some stuff that is actually sometimes very political or not. But yes, I think I've learned a lot in the sense of how we've become an embodiment of the city and how folks turn to us in that sense. But yeah, I think working for LAPL is great in the sense that I also am flexible in what positions, right? There's a movement for mobility and also like transitioning, right? I went from a young adult bilingual outreach librarian to then doing collection development, which is something that's new. So bigger systems also offer that, and yeah, because there's different positions made available. And if I would like to go back to a branch, that's easier than smaller systems at times. I don't know if that answers your question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
To go back to the political part of it, you were saying how sometimes you kind of wait to see if there's any pushbacks, or has there ever been in your career? Like, what do you do to handle that situation if it does occur?
So I actually have been faced with some pushback in my career. So before I begin a program or a project, I always figure out what the need is, right? Why are we trying? What's the community assessment, right? And would this be attractive to our community? What is it filling? And so once I'm able to figure that out and point that out, you create the project or you create the program, right? And so you bring it about to your supervisor and you explain it to them, right? And I think a lot of them fear when I'll give you an example. I used, one of the things was I did a collaboration with Planned Parenthood, right? And we wanted to bring contraceptives. Is it yes, I can speak, to the library for our teens and adults, right? And so I went to my boss and I was like, I think this is a great idea. We are located right next to the high school. I think that we can provide these resources, right? And partner with Planned Parenthood while also providing a program for them to explain, about contraception and all that. And so they came up to me and were like, we can get a lot of pushback. But I'm like, but we're in it. So I always go back to the idea that libraries are a place of information, and that is what we're providing. We have resources and topics about this. We can provide resources and programs about this topic because they're in this building. And so because our field is so big and there's always room for growth, always refer to the fact that we are in a profession of information. And that is kind of like, it's endless. What is information? What can you attain? There's always room for growth and always refer. I mean, I always am like, you're impeding someone from learning. And so no one can really argue against that. And so that's how I faced a lot of the pushback. And someone's always going to disagree with you in that sense. Someone's always going to complain, but it's always about providing knowledge and communication in that sense. Does that answer your question, Petri?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I don't know if anyone has any more questions.
I have one. Are you involved in the LAPL hiring committee?
I am not involved. I am too young in my profession to be involved. No, I'm not. Yeah, I think the hiring is seniors and above, I believe. But no, I am not part of the hiring committee or hiring part of it.
And I've heard different stories that when you apply to LAPL, could take years. Is that still?
I think it's changed. When I started applying, before it was like a list and the list would be 3 years. Right now they're doing it every 6 months, I believe. It might be different with COVID, but they've switched their list to make it every 6 months instead of every 3 years. And so it can take a bit. I think when you're applying to LAPL or when you're applying to any job, my recommendation is to really practice. Find someone, if you can, who works for that system, who's gone through the process, to give you feedback on how you could interview, because every system is so different. Every system has their own formula. How I interviewed for Yolo County was so different than how I interviewed for LAPL. And you just continuously practice and do mock interviews and reach out to folks who are willing to give you mock interviews for that specific system. But yes, it could take a bit, but I know that list is a lot shorter now than it was in the past.
And there's also a test, right?
Yeah, so your test is basically an oral examination and they score you. And then that's the list that remains active, used to remain active for 3 years and now it remains active for 6 months. I believe it's 6 months. And then if you score high enough and there's a position open, they'll like grab a few of you and then interview you for that position.
So the oral is actually a test. It's not the interview, it's a test.
It's an oral interview test. Yeah. So yeah, that's where it's like, find folks who are part of the system, because they're the way you interview. I mean, like I got honed even how like your introduction statement has to be 3 minutes and this is what you say. And like, you have to memorize it because that's your selling point, and then you elaborate it. So yeah. So when you're entering the workforce, and there's a particular location you want to work for, I always advise to like find someone who works there who's willing to give you mock interviews. Well, anyone willing to give you mock interviews is also very important. Okay. Oh, and I think someone asked, do you know when the next time they will be hiring? I don't know when the next time they will be hiring. I can find out, but I think we're on freeze because of COVID. So it might be a bit, I know we're all on hold, but yes. Only if time and has. Oh, okay. Best resources website for authentic. Authentic, do you mean like written in, can you elaborate what you mean by authentic? Like written, not translated work? Okay. That's something we also struggle with too. So we tend to reach out to like, when we were at Guadalajara Field, that was something our librarians actually, like one of our librarians really wanted. So what we did was that we reached out to the vendors and asked for that. As for a website, I really have to just dig. And I know, so yeah, it's really researching based on the book. Also, I think vendors will help you on this a lot. Vendors will help you with that resources a lot. I don't know. Sorry, someone just walked in accidentally. But yes. I don't know. I apologize for not having like a website or resource in that sense. But that is something that I think a lot of people ask about. We just haven't created something like there's in that for that.
In your presentation, you mentioned the mentorship program. Did you do something like that early on in your career, or
like to participate? Like if I participated in it?
Like, did you ever have a mentor that you feel like was really like valuable to your experience in either like library school or after?
Yeah, so I didn't, I never was part of a mentorship well, I was a part of a research program that I think mentored a lot of individuals, but the way I was able to get mentors is through experiences a lot. A lot of times was through the internships I attained, and also through just the work experience. So my recommendation when you're trying to find a mentor and you're really like connecting with someone is to really be upfront. I think a lot of times, like I've been asked like, hey, can you be my mentor? Do you mind mentoring me in certain things? Like, don't fret that a lot. I think a lot of us are very approachable and are like, yeah, I'm open to it. Like, when do you want to meet? Also, I was recommending someone in the sense like, when someone tells you like we should get coffee, and most of the time someone's like, yeah, we should, and nothing ever happens from it, right? I think it's just we're used to it just being talk, right? Like, yeah, always follow up in that. I think some of the most beautiful friendships and mentorship I've gotten was from people I've admired and be like, hey, do you mind meeting with me? And then I actually follow through and I email them and say like, hey, are you free to meet certain date? So that's how I've been able to attain mentorship. And for me, mentorship has really meant a lot because I've learned through observing. And so that's why I think I gained most of my mentors through the work experience I've gotten. Does that make so? But that's my take. If you admire someone and there's someone that you really want to gain advice from, email them. Most like we're all, I was just talking to someone about how like we are the first to reject ourselves, right? We're always scared of like rejection, but we are rejecting ourselves from the possibility by not even emailing folks and not reaching out. So yes. And also following up on emails. Sometimes we're busy and we'll like read the email and we don't even realize we never even answered you. And it's not because we don't want to talk to you, it's because we just forgot. So always follow up with a second email if no one answers you. Yes. Oh, it looks like, yeah. So the April librarian positions is open now. That was posted.
I have another question, and this was from Alejandra, our co-host. What motivates you to keep being so involved in your workplace and in library associations?
The potential for growth. I love learning from articles and stuff I read, but I also love learning from people's perspectives and lived experiences. So my involvement in organizations and community organizations is what really will allow me to understand what is new, what is hip, what is happening in our communities. What is, especially with the programming aspect, or also like just what topics are being covered, so that we can buy books and resources for that, is by becoming involved and knowing others. And so, yes, I can retain a lot from like the books and the articles, but having conversations and being involved, I think there's a lot of knowledge that isn't in print. And you can find that by being involved with others and having conversations.
Patty, as we are getting close to ending this, just wanted to ask, what were some highlights for you this past year, especially during COVID, of being president of LA chapter?
Some of the highlights, oh man. It is really, I think a lot of the work that for Reforma, I think this is my first time being president for an organization as an adult. I think I was like president as a kid, right? It's really learning about how different systems are handling different things. And also the community, finding a community and voicing out our frustrations was such a I mean, it sounds terrible, right? But it was such a beautiful experience because we were going through a pandemic and we were all experiencing trauma and no one was talking about it. And so, but when you found that group, which was what Reforma was about, and it wasn't even like necessarily in a meeting, but also other Reforma members, it felt like someone was finally talking. There was acknowledgement over about what all this was happening, that we were living. We were also human, because I think as librarian what is it? Yeah, I can't even talk. Like, we're in this field and we're used to providing resources and things for people to feel better, right? But this time we were also part of this trauma, right? We as librarians were dealing with trauma while also trying to serve our communities, right? And I think that was something that not a lot of people were talking about. And so one of the highlights of being Reforma president is acknowledging that our members were also experiencing this and how to support them so that they weren't alone. And so also while I was dealing with all this stuff, right? So it was a very understanding, and I think it was like lifting the glass wall that I think a lot of us have with professionalism, is being that we're human and we're also experiencing things. So that was one of my highlights, actually, like being vulnerable more through my work, through Reforma, through just, you know, trying to survive. So I hope that answers your question.
Definitely agree. I think given that space for us to come together and discuss was so essential for a lot of library workers, and to help us prepare also how we're going to serve our communities. I think you're so right. You hit the nail on the head of, you know, turning it around on us before we can support our communities is so essential. So
yeah, I think we constantly learn, right? I think our communities are always growing, and therefore we must always grow and always find how to reach. And also the idea that, like, I think we carry our lived experiences and sometimes live in that, like, that's how it was in my past, and that's how, or I know I'm able to understand this because I went through it. And I think about this a lot when I'm, you know, when people, you know, I grew up in the Riverside, right? And so, and people ask me, like, what was it like? And I'm like, or what is it like now? And I always say, I don't know, because I've lived and I had different experiences growing up. And so for me to go back and, like, for lack of a better word, judge it or say how it is stemming from a place of privilege, because I have a full-time job. I live alone. I'm able to support myself in this sense, right? And so if I focus on what I experienced in the past and try to represent what it is now, I think there's a certain disservice, right? So when you're working with communities and you're trying to reflect, like, use your own experiences, but also understand that you carry a lot of privilege in certain ways, like, right? Like, understand the privileges you carry when you're entering certain communities, even that being of your own. Because it was even like growing up in a single parent household in a low income, right? Figuring out how we were going to pay our bills. That is an experience that I don't know what it is anymore because of everything I've gathered and all these privileges, right? And so remember that when you're creating content and resources and connecting back. So, but yes, I go on tangents a lot. I don't know.
no, I love it. I love it. I also think something that you said earlier was really key is looking at the community needs before you start offering programs or services, or even building up those collections. I think that's one of the things that sometimes we forget, because we are often told, you know, Spanish speakers want this, they want this information. And it's just like, well, wait a minute, why don't we ask them first before we start planning and spending? So I really appreciated that comment that you meant earlier.
Yeah, it's something that I'm also guilty of too. I think my family has an immigrant. Like the one thing that I learned and was quickly to realize was I think my family has an immigrant story, right? And so I was under the assumption at a very young age that a lot of Latinos have an immigrant story, and that is not the case, right? Like we have 4th and 5th generation Latinos in the United States. So what are we doing as a library to serve them? And that was very eye-opening for me, right? Because I think we focus so much on a certain experience that we leave a lot of people behind. So what do we do as being part of this community to address the needs of all groups, right? And I think that's where it's diversifying the workforce, even amongst Latinos, right? Like making sure you hire those 5th and 4th generation Latinos while also hiring folks who have gone through the immigrant experience, instead of just placing like this certain assumption on all of us, right? And so this is something I had to learn, and I learned that in college when I was talking to a friend, and he was like, actually, I don't have an immigrant story. I have 4th generation here. And I was like, oh my God, and I had to check myself. And, I grew and I learned, and I think that's where a lot of my work stems from, is trying to address those, like navigating both, right? So, yes. I don't know if anyone has any more questions. Thank you for your comments. They make me feel so much better.
If there's no more questions, I'd like to thank Patty for being here. And if you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'm pretty sure I kind of heard you, Patty.
Yeah,
she
and
doesn't mind answering. Don't hesitate. I think that's one thing we've been learning throughout the year. Just ask, doesn't hurt to ask. And if you needed that reminder, I just gave it to you. So thank you so much, Patty, for being here. We really, really appreciate it. It's not every day you have the president, talking to our group. And then for all of you guys being here, we really appreciate it. We worked hard on putting it together. I also wanted to share that please follow us on our social media. We tend to put a lot of information there. We try to support each other at every REFORMA chapters. So I try to put information for students and alumni, and even if you're not an SJSU alumni, you're still welcome. But to those who are students, we do have some positions opening for our group, for our REFORMA SJSU iSchool and alumni group. If you guys are interested, if you're still hesitant, actually next week we'll be having some social media posts that maybe might encourage you to apply. It's amazing, I'm trying to learn. I'm a student, I just graduated, but it's helped a lot. It's been a learning experience, and now I was co-hosting with Patty, which I didn't think I would do ever. So I invite you to check out our open positions. We will be having our next Cafecito next month in May. We tend to have our Cafecito events every month, once a month. So keep a lookout for that. And again, just thank you everybody for attending. Have a good night. And look out, I'll be posting also on our YouTube channel and our social media, where you can rewatch this this session today, because it was good and it was a lot. So thank you so much, Patty, again. And
you're welcome.
So thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Patty. It was great to meet you. We'll put your name to the face.
Yeah, and I'm always here available. I posted my contact information. I'm one of those people, like, seriously, bug me. I love to be bugged. I love to.
When I head up to LA, and this is we'll have coffee.
Exactly. Yes, I am more than happy to meet with individuals on a.
We'll get all these LA people here together. It seems to be
a group coffee. That would be great.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. It would be very lovely. And then I come to our REFORMA meetings. We had one today, but we have one every other month. Yes, we'll have one in June. We don't have a date yet, but it'll come up.
Are your meetings virtually right now?
Yeah, all our meetings are virtual right now. We do everything virtually. We're trying to figure out for our 40th anniversary to see if this will be in person, but that committee is trying to figure it out. That won't be till December, so. But
That's so fun.
yeah, but yeah, feel free to bug me for anything. There was a lot more I could have told, but I also wanted to hear your questions and all that.
Hi, Patty. I have just one question for you. It's very random. But
Yes.
since
Hold on.
county,
Sorry.
and I was wondering if this LAPL had similar.
Can you
did you
repeat your question? Yeah, can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Since LA County just recently opened up, does LAPL have any similar plans to do so?
Yeah, so we're supposed to open May 5th, I think someone said. Definitely in May. We're opening up in May. Yes. Yeah.
Good to
Yeah. We're in the back end, we're preparing our staff to start being more comfortable with opening with staff. Well, I know we're doing curbside right now, but they are in the mix of starting to have our staff be more comfortable in that sense.
Oh, okay. I have so many more follow-up questions now that I know that, but
yeah,
but,
I mean,
I'll reach out.
Yes. Feel free. I'm always available and all that.
All right, thank you.
I think we could keep going and going. I think Petri and I had like 4 more questions. That's why I was like quiet. I'm like, are we keeping like, are we going?
No, I know.
mean,
I was
nobody left. I only saw like 1 person leave. So I was like, okay.
Oh, that means a lot. I know. I get really nervous and I'm like, because like I think a lot of us, I try to be open about my nervousness because I think we all suffer or have some form of imposter syndrome. And it's hard, I think, as even a professional in this field for like, I don't know, 8 years, 4 or 5, I forget how many years. I think I can either be really hard on myself to be like, okay, I have to say everything perfectly, or just be like, I'm going to mess up. Like I couldn't remember how to say, information professionals. I couldn't remember how to say that like 5 minutes ago. Now I can say it. I am human. And so I try not to be hard on myself in that sense. But yeah, I was very nervous. I hope you all enjoyed it.
We enjoyed hearing your experience. It was great.
Thank you.
Your hashtag goals.
Oh,
okay, I'm gonna stop. I was like,
no, go ahead.
Can I ask another follow-up question to you guys opening up? What are some of the things that you guys are looking into on how you guys are going to provide spaces for people to study, and especially with all of the LA County CDC guidelines still in effect? I think we're in an orange tier right now. I'm in LA, by the way. So I currently work in an academic library, so we're going through all these questions and wondering how LA County Public Library or LA Public Library is going to do things. So
there's a part of your question that got a little chopped off. You're talking about like spaces to study directly?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm part of the people, not part of the group who's creating it, but our translations team gets sent like the stuff that's going to be shared to our public, and they're not allowing currently. They won't allow individuals to sit down unless it's ADA accommodation or computer stuff. So there won't be any. Everything will be very brief. Everything's very brief. So there hasn't been talk about when we're opening like the space for long-term like studying and stuff. Right now, there's just talk about brief visits to the library.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a question that we're also wondering about too. Like, what spaces can we provide, especially since we're an academic library, so it's more like studying areas.
Yeah, and I think every library system is so different when it comes to it. Like, I used to do a lot of work to connect with like students, like college students, and I can only imagine how it is to like try to support them right now during COVID. But yeah, and I'm not really quite sure what LAPL is doing. Yeah, but we do. If you attend one of our Reforma meetings, or if you email me, I can connect you to folks who do work for like college libraries that might have more of a response in that aspect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. So, but all right. Yeah, I think a lot of it is very short. But unfortunately, I have to get going. But it was amazing and an honor to be here. And if you ever want to set up a meeting with me, please feel free. I am an open book. I know Alejandra and Petri like know this, but I really try to make myself very accessible to individuals, even on a personal level. You know, I didn't mention this in the thing, but like as someone who struggled with depression and anxiety and all that, like all of that plays into effect of who I am today and where I am. And so I try to be very open about how that has shaped me and the work I do, right? And how do I continue to like grow while also learning about other things. So please contact me for anything.
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Patty.
Thank you. Thank you, Patty. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And, oh,
Yes.
oh, I was gonna mention that Arthur put a note up here on the comment on the chat, but I think she left already. Annabelle?
I see it. Yeah. She might have read it. Hopefully everybody
Yeah.
got to read it. Okay,
Well,
well, I'm going to stop the
alrighty.
recording and hopefully I will get it uploaded before it disappears into the recesses of my computer.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay, good night. Thank you. So, oh, Sophia.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, do you have the other Cafecitos recordings?
Yeah, they're in the drive.
They're in the drive. Okay, somebody asked if we're gonna upload them to YouTube, but I think we had decided we were, right? Except the one with our ancestors.
I think we decided we were, yes.
Okay.
And they're in the drive. They're in the Cafecito folder.
Okay.
I think they're in each individual Cafecito. So
Okay.
yeah, I
I'll go ahead and work on that
If you
too.
can't find them and you need to look for them, I can find them, but I know they're there and there's proper spots. Too bad about our last meeting, which disappeared. So this, you know, it's still recording. I'm afraid to mess it up. So I'm gonna hit stop when we're done, and then it takes a while to process, and it's stored on my local computer now. It used to be in the cloud.
Oh,
So
okay.
they changed it. That's no longer an option. So it has to be on my computer, and then I upload it. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate
Great.
you.
So this was the best one yet. And we had 42, including us, RSVPs, which is the most ever.
Yay.
They were
Okay.
coming in while we were here, so they're in the list, just so we know who actually, even though not everybody showed, they wanted their names to be registered.
There.
Nice. Yeah. Excellent job hosting too, by the way. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Hey, bye.